Hi folks, Sarah here from the Vantage team. This video is going to show you how to select the correct version of a full SPDAT if you did the outdated version. So first, as always, this is not a real client. This is a fake client. So we're looking at test client. Now to view the full SPDAT and enter them in, you do that on the measurements tab. So we're going to click measurements. And as you can see, somebody back in November entered in a SPDAT version 2 under the Montgomery County Continuum of Care. We're going to pretend that is the name of your program right now. And as you can see, this person is scoring for rapid rehousing. So ways to check the version that is completed in HMIS. So you're going to look here at the top where it says version 2. And then also if you were to click on the actual assessment by hitting intake here, you can see that self-care and daily living skills is the first item and the numbers go 0 to 4. On the correct version of the full SPDAT, you're going to see this one, mental health and wellness and cognitive functioning. This area is going to be the first domain that you see listed, and then it's going to go from 4 to 1. The other issue with this assessment is that no text has been added. So even if this was the correct version, if you don't type something in here to correspond to the score, it's not considered valid. So that's something you want to make sure you're doing is you're typing the justification for each item next to the domain that it corresponds to. So I'm going to hit exit. So you can see there's two buttons here, add new point of measurement and add new measurement. If I hit this top button, add new point of measurement, I cannot select the correct version of the SPDAT. See how this is grayed out? It just is already picked for me. The only thing you're selecting is if it's at move or, the time frame that something is completed. So that could be really frustrating because you're like, I'm trying to enter the correct version, but all I see is SPDAT version 2. I'm going to hit exit here. That's because you hit add new point of measurement. So it's only going to add new versions of this measurement, aka the SPDAT version 2. To get to the correct version, you're going to go to this bottom button, add new measurement. It's always at the very bottom. So say there's like multiple versions of the SPDAT, you may have to scroll down, but you'll see this button here, add new measurement. When you click this button here, then you get a drop down and you can pick which version of the SPDAT you want to complete. So the SPDATs are for families. So most of the people I'm emailing, this isn't going to apply to you. You don't do family versions of the full SPDAT. So it's this one here, SPDAT version 4. That's the correct version for singles. And you can see today's date, December 1st, 2025. Obviously, you'd want to make sure your program was entered correctly. And if not, you can hit search and pick a different program and make sure the correct user is completed. So we're using me as a proxy. So Sarah Moore, everything looks good. I'm going to hit continue. This is where you're going to see those differences. So you have mental health and wellness and cognitive functioning as the first domain, and then it goes from 4 to 0. You still have those justification boxes. So if I was entering this in for client test and I hit this spyglass, it gives me questions I can ask the client or customer to get this information. Hopefully through your work with the client, you already know a lot of this. And then you're checking collateral sources as well, like CRISP. So if you're selecting a 4 for somebody, you need to write down that they had these 2+ mental health hospitalizations in the last 2 years, and they're not in a heightened state of recovery, aka they're not doing well, right? What about their presentation indicates they're not in a heightened state of recovery? Or they have major barriers to performing tasks and functions of daily living or communicating because of brain injury, learning disability, or developmental disability. So if I was going to type in for this fake client a justification, you could say client has been emergency petitioned 3 times in the last year. That means that they've had, well, we can say emergency petition and hospitalized 3 times in the last year. That's like the very bare minimum to put here, but it doesn't say why they're being hospitalized, right? Exactly. So you could say something like for depression, or, excuse me, say it wasn't depression, for psychosis. And then you'd also want to add a little bit more about what your current concerns are for the client. So, client says there are recording devices in her home and is punching holes in walls. This noise is disturbing neighbors. You can see how poorly I type. Excuse me, spell. You can see how this noise is disturbing neighbors. So that gives you a little bit more insight to what's going on with the client, right? This isn't like she punched a hole once, right? This is a repeat issue. You could also say client refuses any outpatient. You could type out mental health or put mental health. Pretty good to type it out, mental health treatment. So that's enough information. You can always write a little bit more if you want to. So I'm going to hit submit and close since we're just doing this as a test client. So you would go and score each item, and you need to put this little paragraph that indicates why. This is another thing that I've noticed in some of the assessments I've been reviewing in the last few months is that people forget this part, or they put something in here that doesn't correspond to mental health at all. Now, because medications is its own item, you don't have to go into a lot of detail under mental health and wellness about medicine because you would cover it here. So remember, when you're going through each of these domains, you kind of want to have blinders on to the other domains, and you're just talking about that item. Obviously, all of this is going to relate to their housing or their homelessness, right? Depending on the client situation. So just do your best to try to write something here that describes what's going on. For history of homelessness and housing, you need to check the entry exits in HMIS to make sure that whatever is being put here is being verified by HMIS records. So the client might say, I've been homeless for 10 years, but maybe they were homeless in other jurisdictions, so we wouldn't indicate that for our assessment here. Remember, this is not just self-report. This is what you're observing. This is pulled from collateral information. And lastly, the other item that folks seem to get tripped up with is legal. So legal is only for criminal issues. So if someone's being evicted, have a history of eviction, you'd cover that down here in like managing tenancy probably. Legal issues also doesn't include anything related to immigration. And you do need to check Maryland case search. So if you're hitting a 0 or even a 1, you need to put something like case manager reviewed Maryland case search, or per Maryland case search has history XYZ and no current charges. So it's not just self-report. Remember, you're gathering those collateral sources. As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me about anything that I just reviewed. That is a very brief review, but hopefully those little refreshers will be helpful. So I'm going to hit save and exit when I'm finished. And now you can see we've got version 4 here. So version 4, correct version, version 2, incorrect version. And as you'll see, you still have that add new measurement down here. So say I was working with this client for over a year and I needed to come back and update their full SPDAT because they had a life change. I could add new point of measurement because it's going to have this defaulted, everything defaulted except for the time frame, and then I can change the user if I need to. If you are working for a different program, though, you don't want it to say Montgomery County Continuum of Care. So if somebody else was coming in, like say 6 months from now, because maybe I was working with this client and now they're back on the streets. Maybe they're homeless again. Outreach encounters them. They're going to go down here and hit add new point of measurement because they need to change who the provider is up here. This is what happens when you hit search. As always, if you have any questions about this, please reach out to me via email, shoot me a text message, call me. We can set up a Zoom meeting so we can do an assessment together if that would be helpful. So hopefully this has been helpful, and thank you for your time.